All right. Well, welcome to the Split Take podcast. I am your co-host Jacob. Chandler's here, but he's currently hidden for the
Yes.
big reveal. And our good friend Brandon Sanju is here as a guest for this episode.
Batman.
Thanks for having me.
aficionado.
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Just kidding.
No, not unfortunately
Batman
anymore.
simp.
Batman has been redeemed.
Fortunately,
Yeah,
I think.
true.
Yeah. So yeah, we are here today to talk about the Batman. Chandler obviously has to do his reveal, so I'm not sure how he wants to
I'll
work
start
that.
it. Why not?
Okay.
So I'll open the video. Whoa! Don't look. I didn't realize how wide this camera was. So yeah, I bought a fit just for the Batman discussion. As a Robert Pattinson fan.
I love how usually
It came really quick. I remember
It
when
did.
you ordered it.
It came in like 2 days. It came here before my Criterions did.
Dude,
Funny
the
enough.
Sopranos ones we got took forever.
Yeah, they did. They literally took like 3 weeks.
Dude, I thought you were gonna have that and the Batman vessel, and I would have laughed.
Oh my god, the
so
Batman
hard.
vessel.
The
No, I
what?
tried to find. Have you not seen the vessel?
I have no idea. No.
AMC has a $27. They call it the vessel, and it is Batman's cowl, and you can open the head and you can put popcorn in it, but it's $30. And
It's
I'm
so
pretty sure you
weird.
can wear it, or is it too small?
No, you can. You can wear it. It's like a little mask you put on your head. It's the Batman mask, and you open the top and you put popcorn in there, and which by itself is a weird thing. But the fact that it is called the vessel is just so weird.
It's so funny that it's almost worth $27.
Yeah, just the fact that it's, I don't know, good merchandising. I guess
I'd pitch in $2 just to see one of you get it.
I'd happily wear
much,
the vessel
but-
to a screening of I don't know, like Schindler's List or something.
One ticket for Sing 2.
Yeah.
Get Sing 2.
You know those there's YouTube channels of like people who review movies in their cars right after
Yeah.
they've seen the movie. You could do the vessel reviews, and it's you go and see movies, and every movie you always wear the vessel to it, and you do the review with that on.
It's your secret
And
identity.
that's the whole shtick.
I just watched the entirety of Showa, and then you have the vessel with milk duds in it. It's just-
I went and saw Satan Tango at the Loft and wore the vessel for all 7 hours.
I was
Yeah.
kicked out.
I'm sad I didn't get here before I went to go see the movie, but maybe I'll go see it again and wear. Because I am before the Batman. I think all of us can agree that we were Pattinson pilled before the Batman. Most
Yeah.
people were. I'm glad that this is the general population catching up to the Pattinson train.
Is it? I feel like everyone is has been on
I
the
don't know.
Pattinson.
I've
I've
seen-
seen,
or
I
people
think
just
it's-
haven't paid attention to him.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's mainly like 12-year-olds who just know him from Twilight and now think he's cool because he's Batman. But it's like, good time.
Good Time,
Lighthouse,
Lighthouse,
come
High
on.
Life. Come on.
Yeah, I
That's
need to see
wild
High
to me.
Life.
No, you don't. You don't.
High
but
Life
that's
is
just
Has
my
Andre
man's opinion.
3000 in it.
Okay.
That alone, I should be watching it.
It's just wild to me thinking like watching Twilight and then not seeing Robert Pattinson for that length of time and then seeing him in the Batman. Like that's not a perspective I ever considered someone having.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
most
mainly
of them
just younger people who like aren't very aware of Pattinson's filmography.
Mhm. Yeah.
I should have made this my background. My custom Batman blanket that my grandma made me that I use every day.
I used to have a Batman shirt, but that was back when I was like 16.
Yeah, I looked for mine. I thought I had one for. I was like, oh, I'll wear it, but I cannot find it. I also had these like ridiculous Batman sunglasses that made like a cowl that I got for like a stocking stuffer when I was younger. And
The most
find
annoying
them.
thing is that the last time I went to the Renaissance Fair, which was, God, 5 or 6 years ago at this point, I spent $90 on a Batarang. And it's sick.
worth.
Because it's sharp, it's metal, and it also doubles as a screwdriver.
It's kind of cool.
Is
Although I have
Mm-hmm.
absolutely zero Batman or superhero related apparel or things because I'm not a fucking nerd.
it like
I simp for Batman and Spider-Man, and that is it. So that
Yeah.
alone has made this the best year in cinema.
Those I
Ever.
feel like those two just, as of late at least, those two are like the favorite superheroes.
Yeah,
I
Now
think
that-
the best
so.
ones.
Now that Marvel, like that Iron Man is kind of done with Marvel, and I'm not sure there is any competition for the title of the best or favorite superheroes right now.
Yeah, it'd probably be Batman, Spider-Man, and Wolverine, which there isn't one yet. That'd probably be the most popular top 3, or maybe Superman.
That's the thing is that every other superhero I've just been very hit or miss with, but the only ones that I show up for every time are Spider-Man and Batman.
I will. So I'll preface where I'm coming from in this conversation, and maybe you two also want to. So I have absolutely zero experience with any of the comics. So any of my comments are entirely, my perspective is entirely movie based. So keep that in mind as we discuss Batman.
Yeah.
I don't know where you guys are coming from.
Well, I know Sanya's a little bit more into it, but my my history is that I was very into the Arkham games, which are fucking amazing. I love the shows, and I've read a handful of the comics, but I'm very familiar with the Batman lore just because I love the games and the shows so much that I looked up every character and all the different iterations or whatever. But I know Sanju it's gone above that, and I know you have a good amount of the comics and have read a good amount of the comics.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've been obsessed with Batman since I was a little kid. I will say I was the original brooding Batman when I was like 4.
Insert
For Halloween.
picture here.
I insisted on having a knife. My Batman didn't have guns, but he had a knife when I was like 4. But anyway,
There's
yeah,
Batman.
I've been obsessed with Batman since I was little. I've read like most of the classics, Killing Joke, Year One, Long Halloween. I've read some Batman Beyond, but I'm not like crazy knowledgeable. But yeah, I know like the
But you have more of a
general-
perspective.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the comic book side of things.
yeah.
Good to know. So we have kind of like 3 different perspectives where we're each coming from a little different place.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm the most ignorant, then there's Chandler, and then there's
Middle
Sanju.
ignorant. Yeah.
There's that's the gradient here.
Yeah. Well, Chandler needs to admit that Arkham City is the best game.
It's Arkham Asylum. Even though the ending of Arkham Asylum sucks. The boss fight's stupid.
With the Joker,
It's so
Bane
dumb.
Joker.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
But
Anyway,
Arkham Asylum has Scarecrow, which is sick.
he's terrifying in Arkham Knight. He's in Arkham City a little bit too.
Is he? I don't remember. I actually, quick side tangent was I was about to download all those games all because I have all 4 of them on Steam, and then I bought Elden Ring. So
Anyway, this is neither here nor there. We're here to talk about The Batman 2022. It is directed by Matt Reeves and stars Robert Pattinson as the titular Batman, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Jeffrey Wright, John Turturro, Peter Skarsgård, Andy Serkis, Colin Farrell. Quite a big cast. You gave me a little funny look.
I didn't remember Peter Skarsgård being in this.
I remember his name in the credits, and I see his name here. I don't know.
Oh,
what he
okay.
played.
Yeah, either.
Look, was he the DA? No, he wasn't the DA.
I don't know.
Anyway,
He was one of the cops.
Doesn't matter.
I'll double check because there was that one time when I trusted Google's actor recommendations and it put just the randomest actor in a movie. I was like,
yeah, he was. He
Really?
was the DA. He was the DA.
It makes sense. Makes sense.
anyway, it's music by Michael Giacchino.
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 I don't know.
Michael
the
Duncachino.
Italian. Michael Duncachino did the music, cinematography by Greg Fraser, and it is about Batman solving crimes in Gotham City and taking on the Riddler. Sanju, Chandler, what did we think of the Batman?
Second
Chandler.
best Batman movie.
I would agree. Probably the second best Batman movie. It's almost like I'm resisting like recency bias because like I see a lot of people. That's a new discussion where it's better than The Dark Knight but I've sat on it for like a week and I think it's second to The Dark Knight.
I find it very
It does a
interesting.
lot
A lot
of-
of reviews I've listened to have just not mentioned the Nolan Batmans at all, and I feel like they've just been kind of like swept under the rug in the discourse, at least what I've been looking at.
It's almost
Yeah.
like people see those Nolan Batman movies as like above the superhero genre for some reason. It's weird.
Yeah, I would put the Dark Knight, maybe like Batman Begins seems more like a Batman movie. Dark Knight Rises seems like Christopher Nolan did whatever the fuck he wanted to do. And The Dark Knight seems like kind of like in the middle of those two things, but
The
I've
Dark
always
Knight, well, in more recent years, the Dark Knight is a Michael Mann movie with Batman.
yeah. Yeah. I think this is going to be a kind of like the James Bond movies where I will maintain that Skyfall is the best movie in the James Bond franchise, but it might not be the best James Bond movie, like in terms of what
Yeah.
adheres to the kind of subgenre that the James Bond movies are. And so I would apply
Yeah.
that logic similarly to The Dark Knight, where I think that is most definitely the best movie in the
Mhm.
Batman cinematic world, but it might not be the best depiction of Batman. And at least from a lot of comic book nerds I've been watching, they seem to think this is the best depiction of
Yeah.
Batman in terms of Batman.
Well, because the thing about the Nolan movies is that to me, Batman has always been like the least interesting part of those movies. He's fine. I like Christian Bale as Batman. I like the suits, but he's not necessarily. He's more. He's a figure. He's more representative of like the themes than he is like an actual like the Batman character. He doesn't really do a lot of detecting. He's more about fighting and trying to stop people. But this one in particular, like when this is like the first Batman movie that Batman was the most exciting part to me. Where Robert Pattinson as Batman, just the way he moves, the way he talks, his like presence,
He's
what
in every
Batman
scene.
does. Yeah, he is in every scene, and he's the I think he's the best part of the movie. And I went into this fully expecting to be like, waiting for the Riddler scenes or whatever, because I really like Paul Dano and I like that design. But no, like he is like my new favorite Batman. Robert Pattinson. Unless you count Kevin Conroy. He's always going to be my favorite Batman. But live action Batman, it's Robert Pattinson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to agree. Robert Pattinson just hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, he's perfectly cast, and yeah, I think a lot of people have had that take where it's yeah, maybe The Dark Knight's a better made movie, but if you want to watch Batman for 3 hours, then pick the Batman. I don't know. I think there's been some Dark Knight slander. I think
It always happens.
yeah.
It's like the most popular movie of all time. It's going to get backlash. but
Yeah.
It's especially which is weird because I feel like the opposite happened when No Way Home came out. Where when No Way Home came out, people were like drooling over
Andrew Garfield.
for some reason they're drooling over the Andrew Garfield movies, which makes no sense. But more pleasantly, they were fawning over the Raimi movies, and there's like a giant retrospective of that. But yeah, for some
Yeah.
reason, I don't know. I guess people are just anxious to pit this against the Nolan movies, and I don't see why they can't just coexist.
I
They're
agree.
both great
Because it's a
movies.
competition, Chandler.
It's dumb.
Film
Dumb.
is objective, and you have to make your opinion right, or else someone's going to make theirs right.
Right.
That's
So
true. It's true.
And I think people got mad because in Batman Begins, it's Gotham it's more I don't know if it's more stylized, but Dark Knight, it's just
Definitely
like,
feels more like
Mm.
Gotham.
yeah, in the
Dark Knight is just Chicago.
Dark Knight
kind of-
Rises is even worse.
yeah, for this, I rewatched Batman Begins and the Dark Knight, and Batman Begins, I'm not sure it quite holds up as well as I thought it would. But part of the appeal of Dark Knight is that there is like a complete lack of CGI sheen to the city. It is just Chicago essentially, with a few
Yeah.
extra little details thrown in there, and it's kind of for a Batman movie, so much of that movie just takes place in broad daylight, and it's such like a clean looking movie. I
Yeah.
just love that aesthetic, and I find it so interesting, but couldn't be farther from the aesthetic and cinematography of the Batman, which is just dark and
It's
rainy,
gross.
Rainy.
and depressing. They're like the opposite sides of the Batman coin.
For
Yeah.
sure. I
Feels
think
more
this
like
movie.
Blade Runner than anything. But
Yeah,
go
Yeah.
on.
yeah. I think this movie does a good job of, creating Gotham City. I think it's almost a hybrid of the Tim Burton Gotham City and the Nolan, where it's like it's grounded in reality, but it's still very stylized. Like you said, it's always rainy, it's gross and grimy, and it's not just it's more stylized in the color grading as well. And
Yeah.
I think that's why people like it the most. It
If I
feels
had-
most Gotham-y.
If I had a preference, the other reason why I kind of like the Chicago style Batman is that New York I feel is so overused in movies, and particularly in this, it's not really a criticism, but it sometimes feels too New Yorky as like a city. Like I just get too much New York, and I feel like there's so much baggage with that it's kind of hard to escape that, and just not filming in New York at all is the only way to escape the New York comparisons of
Sure.
Gotham
They didn't
versus
film in
that.
New
And
York.
obviously, what?
They didn't film in New York.
Okay, but there's New York type structures within
Yeah. But Gotham
the
has
way
always
that's
felt
laid
like
out and all that.
It's
Yeah.
Chicago
Yeah.
and New York kind of melded together. Like
but with the ugliest attributes of the city put to the forefront.
yeah, ironically, Metropolis too, where it's like
Yeah.
Metropolis is kind of New York City too, but in a
Well,
different
it's
way.
interesting because Metropolis always felt like New York City, but like a utopian version of it.
Yeah,
Where Gotham is more like it's New York, but it's like defined by its like corruption and darkness. And most of this movie takes place at night, which I enjoy. The comparisons going into this movie is I heard a lot of people compare it to Seven mainly was a big one. Zodiac as well, and I don't necessarily see the Zodiac comparison, but I think the Seven is completely accurate.
yeah.
Where
well,
Seven. Well, one of the things I've always disliked about Seven is that for some reason it just felt like it felt like Gotham, where like it didn't really feel like a real place. It felt like some sort of weird, edgy, hellish scape. But I think
Which
this
is the
works
point.
perfectly. Yeah, but this works better for this feel.
Okay, that's some Seven slander right there.
No,
Yeah.
Not Seven.
I just don't think it's a valid criticism, but okay. But whatever you want to think.
I think the only reason people mention Zodiac is because the Riddler is the Zodiac killer, essentially.
Yeah.
It has kind of
but
like
it is
the,
a lot more
the
like
Zodiac
Seven.
feeling, where it's very long and plotting, and there's lots of different parts to the case. Like it isn't just a straight line throughout the entire case. And like in Zodiac, it's all over the place. Where
Mhm.
and it's rainy too in some scenes in Zodiac. Like there's kind of a similar vibe.
And we see the killings from we watch them happen. At least in Zodiac, it happens once, but
It's happened a few times in Zodiac.
does it? It's been a long time
Yeah.
since I watched it. But yeah, like that opening scene with the Riddler is like super awesome and
Yeah, it's spooky.
sets the scene perfectly.
My coworker had a similar another movie comparison that I thought was apt in terms of like narrative and thematics, and that was Chinatown.
Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
too on Twitter, which I thought was smart.
Yeah. Because it's gotten more in line with noir than most Batman movies.
Yeah,
It's mystery focused. The lighting is all dark and mysterious, and the atmosphere is good. But what I think this movie does better than most Batman movies is just depict the sheer level of corruption that goes through every part. I mean, I literally think the only good people in this movie are Batman, Alfred, and Gordon. That's it.
pretty much.
Everyone else is fucked to some degree, which is nice because I don't know. Because by the end of it, I feel that there is a nice a progression. He's sort of chipping away at that sort of corruption and darkness, and both literally and metaphorically. But it's a good way. I enjoy the fact that they didn't even bother explaining the origin story. It's become so ingrained in the culture that no one also like Spider-Man, we all know how it happened. No need to explore that again.
Well,
But-
even better that it works it into the story organically and into his own arc, where it's like all we need is a little hint that, you know, Thomas and Martha Wayne were killed, and then it works into Bruce Wayne understanding the level of corruption within the city. And we don't need the
Yeah.
pearl, you know, the pearls hitting the street in the opening credits. You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot more ingrained in the story compared to like just a jumping off point where we just
Mhm.
cut to 20 years later or whatever. So probably one of the best, ironically.
Yeah. And plus, it's a great opening scene not only because of the Zodiac thing with the Riddler, but I also love that montage of just the criminals just cowering at the shadows, because it's a great way to demonstrate the fact that he's not like this heroic figure of justice and hope, but he's like sort of he's essentially depicted as a criminal himself, just a criminal that fights other criminals. He's using fear tactics to get other criminals to stop, but he's
Well,
not necessarily
Batman
a
is a
hero.
criminal
I mean, yeah, but like this, he
in the
doesn't even
strictest sense.
attempt.
Yeah,
He
of
doesn't even
course.
Of the
attempt to
word.
be an actual like hero. He's more of a revenge vigilante than anything.
Yeah, and that kind of works within the theme of the movie too, where it's
Yeah, it
he's
establishes
vengeance.
it really early that he's vengeance, and I think that that goes a long way into like making the movie have a nice narrative thematic progression to it.
Yeah. Because instead of the usual thing where they have like Batman learning how to be Batman, he learns how to fly, he learns how to use his technology, he makes the suit. He's got most of that figured out, but he's trying to figure out what his identity is.
But
Like,
he's also
what
still
is he?
learning here and there. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
that. Yeah,
perfect. Like
yeah,
when he jumps off the police building and
yeah.
he's not like he doesn't have the flying thing down and just kind of
There's a great little
splat.
evolution that you can see. Just one thing that if you compare one scene that happens a lot in this movie is Batman goes to try to get into the club, the Iceberg Lounge, and in the first scene, he just walks up to the front door, knocks on the door in the full fucking Batman suit, and demands to be let in. And then he goes again, and then he's sort of a little more sly about it. He immediately engages them in some sort of like combat, and then the third one he just fucking sneaks in. So you
Well,
can
no,
just
it's
see
it's
that.
he sneaks in and then he does it again as Bruce Wayne, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
let him
yeah.
right in.
Yeah. So you can see that he's sort of understanding the role that like how to use the Batman persona, like what it means, what he has to like, do to succeed with it, which is interesting because that whole, I almost feel like at this point, whenever there's a new superhero movie, you can just skip the first one because that's the origin stuff. Who wants to see that?
No one.
Every new superhero movie, that's how they do it. You can just, it's so boring. But like this, they trust that everyone is showing up because they know what Batman is, how it works, and it's an interesting take on the character. One that actually makes him interesting as a character and not necessarily as a vessel into this whole world of villains and corruption and style.
Yeah,
But
and I think it ironically, even though it isn't a formal origin story, I think it's still an origin story in that it's like
yeah, yeah.
the best way to define, like, I think this is one of the best movies that defines Batman. I think The Dark Knight does it in a great way too. But like
Mhm.
this concept of fear that we talked about, where it's like, yeah, he's one man, but he still has these tactics to suppress criminals in Gotham, and then also this concept of identity,
Mhm.
which has kind of dominated Batman since the Dark Knight Returns comic, which some people say is like ruined Batman and ruined comic books because it was the first one that made him like a lot more edgy.
Mhm.
There's an animated movie about it too, and The Dark Knight Returns 2 is where he fights Superman. But this idea of like Batman's his true identity and Bruce Wayne's his alter ego, or you know what I mean, kind of started with that. So this movie kind of uses that Dark Knight Returns concept pretty well, and I think it kind of goes into, unlike maybe the Snyder or some of the other ones, it talks about um, the conditions that create these criminals, and kind of mirrors that with the Riddler, Bruce Wayne, and Selena Kyle's characters, um, versus like um, more of a less based approach to look at crime. I'll say you could
Yeah.
argue that it's kind of muddled, but I think I think that was a really interesting thematic through
Definitely
line.
an interesting way to make, because I do feel that the best like comic book villains are always the ones that kind of have a point.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think Riddler's like borderline based in this movie until he becomes
you can root for him for half of the movie until
he becomes like
kinda
a Twitch
insane.
streamer.
The 4chan.
That was perfect. I hope you
Discord
were
mod.
taking notes on that part.
I was.
The acting.
I was.
No, but it is really cool how it does kind of address some of like the systemic issues and problems of Gotham. But at the same time, I can tell there's somewhat of a reticence to avoid the obvious why doesn't Batman just do good things with his money, which would be
Well, they address it a little bit.
They do address it a little bit, but I do feel like there was an avoidance of it, which I think is good. Like if your movie isn't about addressing, like it's primarily the movie is not about addressing systemic changes and how to do that. And so I think it's best to just avoid that conversation pretty much entirely, not entirely, but as much as you can. And I did appreciate like this movie sets itself apart from the Nolan Batman movies in a lot of ways. Obviously, we talked about like visually, but I think also those movies dealt a lot with kind of like the business end of Wayne Enterprises and all that. This one, it just doesn't give a shit, doesn't care. There's, Alfred goes through some papers. That's about the limit we see of business, and it's entirely just in the nitty gritty detective work. And I really appreciated how that was it. The movie itself focused on other stuff, the detective work, as we said, and like dealing with problems in a Batman centric way, not in a Wayne centric way, in the way that like the Dark Knight trilogy did. And so I think it struck the balance of kind of sort of addressing the underlying systemic issues of Gotham without getting too in depth of the contradiction of the fact that he's a billionaire and probably could help in ways other than beating up people with his fists. And I expect perhaps further movies within this iteration of Batman to kind of deal with that, because they do talk about the obviously like the sins of his father and all that, and the renewal program. And I feel like there's lots of setups, not like direct setups, but interesting places they can take thematically, exploring this version of Gotham and this version of systemic poverty and corruption and crime and all that.
It's interesting. Like, I know that they're definitely going to make more. There's no way there's not going to make any
trilogy.
More. But I appreciate
they approved
this
the Penguin
movie
spin-off.
They did. I appreciate this trilogy to like it could in an alternate world where no one went to go see this movie. I think this movie does work on its own. Like it's pretty like it open and closed, lots of arcs. There's a finality to it, while also being ambiguous in a way that works both as like being thematically ambiguous, but also in a way that sets up for future movies. But I did want to know what everybody thought of Penguin, because Penguin's always been one of my least favorite Batman villains. He's kind of lame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's kind of lame. Because I think as far as like the whole, a criminal underlord thing, I always thought Black Mask was a lot more interesting a villain.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Penguin's a little too cartoony for me, but I fucking love Colin Farrell in this movie. I think this is easily the best Penguin adaptation I've seen. And if he was the main villain of the second one, I wouldn't even be upset.
I think he'll be one of the villains.
Yeah.
I think the Gotham or the Penguin series will kind of highlight his rise to power. Hopefully it's just fucking Gotham Sopranos.
That'd be great. That would be awesome.
But yeah, I liked him quite a bit. He's definitely playing it up, which somehow works despite the rest of the movie being pretty grounded.
He's playing it up, but I did see, I think it was Mark Kermode talked about this. And I thought about it while watching the movie, because there's a very slight Italian accent from a few of the characters, like the Penguin and then John Turturro.
Yeah.
And Kermode brought up House of Gucci and Jared Leto in that movie. And Kermode and I slightly disagree in that Kermode just hates Jared Leto's performance. And I think Jared Leto's performance is it's terrible, but it's the only entertaining thing about that movie.
Yeah.
But like Jared, you want to see like hamming up a Italian character that is like out there, like stealing the scene, everything kind of like it's too much. And this by comparison is, and this is the point that Kermode was making, the Colin Farrell here is the correct way of doing a getting lost in the prosthetics and makeup kind of performance where like, yes, he is playing to the character, and obviously it's the Penguin, it's a larger than life character, so there is a bit of grandioseness required for that. But I think he didn't like steal the scene with crazy accents or weird actions and stuff like that.
It isn't
really fit
distracting.
into the world.
Yeah.
Like it was grounded, but kind of comic booky, silly enough to kind of, it rode that line perfectly. The
Yeah.
performance.
For sure. Somehow.
It's funny because there's a lot of characters in this movie, like Batman characters, I just don't really care for. That I think they did. Like, I've never been a Catwoman fan, but I think Zoe Kravitz is also like easily the best Catwoman. Although I haven't seen Batman
You're
Returns.
slandering Batman Returns right now.
I haven't
pretty
seen Batman
heavily.
Returns. Sorry, I'll go watch Batman Returns.
It's
but,
like a fan favorite, but I don't think it's the best.
So you're a
but
slanderer.
Anyway.
But it was I don't care for Catwoman, I don't care for Penguin, and I've never really found Falcone all that interesting either. But I honestly think all three actors made these parts, like characters, much more interesting than they usually are. But yeah, I still think now here's I want to talk about the Riddler because thematically I think the Riddler is interesting, but I do feel that when the interrogation scene starts, Paul Dano tries just a little too hard to be crazy, kooky, weird criminal that it gets bordering on grating. Because I feel he works so much better. I don't know, because he's doing the same thing that he was doing earlier on in the movie, like specifically that phone call he had with Batman where he has to try to get the bomb off the guy's head. I thought that was like a good way to be like sort of crazy criminal, eccentric super villain or whatever. But I feel like once he gets in the interrogation room and he just is left, to his own devices, it gets a little too much for me.
I think it might also lose, if I'm remembering correctly, it might lose a little of its personality, and that I would have liked more riddles from him.
Yeah,
like there's the
there's
one
only
scene in
3 or
particular with
4.
the bomb diffusion that is like
Yeah.
riddle centric, and I love that. That was great. And it would have been
it's
nice if a little
creepy,
later
too.
in the movie, in his interaction with Batman, and that they would have more actual riddles there.
Yeah,
fun.
but that's the thing, is that it's that scene in particular that gets, it loses me a little bit. But then the idea that he's sort of inspiring other Riddlers, his little army of internet trolls, which is very interesting. I think that overall that final climax is
that worked
pretty
really
strong.
well. A good
Yeah.
integration of toxic online culture
Yeah.
into a movie.
Yeah. I liked the Riddler quite a bit. I think I honestly wanted more Paul Dano. I think
Yeah.
once he's like unmasked, I wanted a little bit more of that. And I know actually the other deleted scene is Batman talking to the new Joker that I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I just think, I don't know. I get what you're saying. They were trying to create their own like Dark Knight interrogation scene possibly, with that Arkham scene.
Or a
He
homage
does-
to High and Low.
Or also true.
Base.
Also true.
Well, he kind of does have a riddle where he says like you didn't even figure it out. Like he expected Batman to have figured out.
Yeah, but that was more like a mystery than
Yeah, I like that
Riddler.
revelation though, where it's like, oh fuck, like
Yeah.
and that goes back to what we were talking about, where he's not year 1, he's a year 2 Batman, so he's still like he gets his ass kicked a little bit.
He's a little toddler Batman.
Yeah, he's not fully there, which is more interesting, honestly.
I agree.
Especially
Now
for a
I-
first movie.
Now I want like a Boss Baby style Batman where it's like literally a 2-year-old Batman.
Be pretty badass.
Do
Pretty
that.
sick.
I mean, Warner Brothers animation's pretty good. They
Let's get
they
Alec Baldwin to do it again. Could be
There you
both.
go. Bat
Gotham,
baby.
Bad.
Boss Batman.
Yeah, and I think that third act was an interesting climax where it's not a sky beam, it's not Gotham City.
It's high stakes.
You know what I mean? It's high
Yeah.
stakes, but it's unique. And like the Riddler pretty much wins. Like
Yeah.
he blows up he floods the
He
city,
floods.
kills, well, shoots the mayor, which someone was like, the mayor has the best immune system of all time because she was going through flood sewer waters with a bullet wound.
True. True.
But yeah, I like that it ends on a hopeful note, despite the Riddler kind of doing like 98% of what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel hokey.
It's also fun, just the idea that, you know, the movie, the entirety of the movie, it's just raining nonstop. So when he blows up those vans or whatever, all that rain comes in. It's sort of like a Taxi Driver-esque, you know, I'm washing away the filth on the streets, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel sort of conflicted about the final act. Like up until the interrogation scene between the two of them, it's like this is 100% all the way on board, and it turns into more of a disaster movie at the end. And not to say I didn't like, I enjoyed watching it. It's just part of the ending didn't quite click. Like I'm not sure it all was leading up as well as it could to that.
Yeah.
Like the thing I noticed about watching Batman Begins again is that as often as it possibly can, it has the Wayne train system in Gotham. It shows it in the background of some shots. It has a scene on there, and it just felt like the storm seawall. I remember it being mentioned once in the beginning of the movie, so like it obviously was set up. I just felt like it could have been more integrated throughout the plot in kind of like interesting ways, so that by the time you get there, is like, oh, why didn't I think of that being blown up as a solution? Where here it was just like, oh, yeah, sure, it was set up. I know that's a thing, so it's not out of left field, but it just felt a little kind of could have been better integrated.
Well, I also think it has a bit of a structural problem where it becomes, when it's the Batman Riddler cat and mouse game, it's great. I love it. But then there's like this weird little deviation right before the beginning of the third act where it becomes more about Batman trying to figure out if his parents were also corrupt. And then they get into the thick of it with Falcone, and it just becomes much less interesting to me compared to like the Riddler stuff. Yeah, I didn't care for it.
I think that kind of ties to him growing as a character. I think it's a fair criticism to say like it kind of goes off course. I just bought into
it's all investigation, and it all kind of feeds back into itself. Eventually. It's a diversion, but it works, I think.
And it's kind of the Riddler's leading him on the path as well. But like I think it builds into his character where he's like, he doesn't want to believe that his parents, or specifically his dad, was like extremely corrupt. And then like he's a younger Batman who's still filled with a lot of anger and vengeance. So like coming to that realization of, I don't know, like undercutting his whole point of being Batman, he has to like question like why am I doing this? And the movie kind of talks about it a lot. Like, what's the point of being Batman? Am I making a difference?
Yeah.
And I think undercutting Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne is like, I liked it, but I get that it's kind of different from the main plot.
That's the ironic thing about Batman, is if you want to have a let's say like a long-running Batman TV show, you can't ever really question Batman's effectiveness because he's clearly ineffective because the criminals just keep coming. And if you want to have like a continuing Batman story, his vengeance or whatever his motivation is for trying to clean up this streets of Gotham can't work as long as you want that story to continue.
And there's a couple ways that you can address it. You can be like, that's part of why Batman or Bruce Wayne is kind of like insane, is that it's like you'll never ever get to the bottom of it. And then I know in the comics there's like some like ridiculous storyline where like, and I don't know, like hundreds of years ago there was some sort of demon under Gotham that cursed it, and that's why it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think that kind of is why Batman.
A man in a bat suit running around fighting crime is ridiculous. So I'm willing to entertain a bit of that. I mean, a demon under Gotham, it's a bit silly, a bit too silly even for this. But
and it curses Gotham. I forget what comic it is, but yeah, it's kind of
accurate.
goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also just want to say, this is my favorite Batman, but it's also my favorite Gordon, who Jeffrey Wright carried 2021.
Jesus fucking Christ. Favorite part of the film, especially like Jeffrey Wright and Robert Pattinson, like the buddy cop sections of the movie were just,
they're literal
just too much fun.
buddies.
Too much fun. And I'm glad that they also skipped over the whole, does Gordon trust this guy? He has to sort of get to know Batman before he realizes that he's on his side, because that's also tired and done and it's boring. The fact that this movie, like, it's also fun to me that Gordon is like the only one who has like sort of a connection. He's Batman. I mean, he's not Bruce Wayne's only friend, but he's Batman's only friend.
Yeah, and all the cops are like, "Why are you letting him in here?"
I thought there was a really good integration between like Batman in the scenes with cops and like the distrust on that level. I felt that dynamic was really, it just played with interesting ways in the different scenes when they have to interact with each other.
I love that line where he's like, he's touching the evidence, and then Gordon's like, he's wearing gloves or something, like, I don't know. It's just like, I just love that whole dynamic.
And really good as a connoisseur of mysteries. There was some really good like clue moments in the movie that like drawing attention to stuff that is interesting, like particularly in the beginning when Batman's just like looking around the room at things, and it plays it very silently. He's not commenting on the clues, and that's one of the good things. Good murder mysteries don't comment on everything. They show you things for you to draw your own conclusions from. And obviously, like, Batman looks at finds the blood stain on the floor. He's the first one, and then one of the investigators is like, "Oh shit, let me take a picture of that." Like, a cool little investigatory moment.
And I like the whole contact lenses thing, where it's like
some good bat tech.
Yeah, it's fun bat tech. And I remember at the beginning, I'm like he's staring at stuff, and I'm like, are they gonna set it up that he has like photographic memory? I'm like, that'll be so stupid. Please. And I'm like, or is this like an acting choice? And then I was like, oh, okay, duh. He's got the lenses. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
It's fun because, you know, there's the hallmarks of the bat tech. You know, you got the grappling hook, which is great.
Might be goated grappling hook.
I remember the Tim Burton first grappling hook being pretty goated. But like this one, he fucking shoots it into people's legs. It's kind of sick. The batarang, which you don't really see until the end, the contact lens.
I like that it comes out of his little chest piece.
It's just right here. I hope it. I kind of thought that the flying scene was kind of stupid in like a fun way. It's framed so weird. Me and Sanju talked about this, where it's like a GoPro shot where Batman is on top of the frame for some reason. It looks very odd. But to me, it's one of those things that feels like, okay, this is his first draft of a suit.
Yeah.
He took like a flying squirrel thing. He's like, all right. And he fucking biffs it. So maybe he's like already making alterations to it. Because, I mean, that's one of the coolest Batman things ever, is the fact that he's just got the wings that come out. That's like, I mean, come on. So I'm hoping they don't stick with like the squirrel suit. But that did feel like, you know.
Yeah, it's like an actual flight suit.
I would one Batman. The one thing that I feel like every Batman movie and superhero movies do this all the time, where it respects the idea of blunt force trauma, because I'm sorry, Batman flying and then smacking with that level of intensity into the car and then the bridge.
Yeah.
Suits don't protect you from that. That's blunt force.
Well, there's also the fucking explosion that he's right in front of.
That seemed like the way they filmed. I was worried about that for a second, but the way they showed the explosion itself, felt a bit less like it wasn't just everything. He's just enveloped by it. It's more like he's pushed back by the blowback.
Right.
The force of the explosion, not actually getting in the middle of the explosion. So that felt reasonable. And like to a certain extent, I will hand wave guns, like being shot at point blank. Like that's the point of the Batman suit, is to protect him from that.
Yeah.
But this is more of like a me thing, or like also like rewatching The Dark Knight and him like falling off of a 50-story building and like I like it's not a big problem. It's just I kind of like a
Well, his cape
Batman
slows
movie
him
to
down, to be fair, in Dark Knight.
yes, but the way it's in the Dark Knight, like the way his cape like it never really unfurls in a way that
Yeah,
is
it kind of
convincing
just
that it
goes
would
upward.
slow him down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here there was just like ever so like just one or two moments where it's just like the amount of damage you're taking is just a little too much.
Yeah.
And like I
Yeah.
don't that's on par with comic book movies in general. So it doesn't bother me. I just kind of like
Yeah.
if one superhero movie or Batman movie just took actual humans and treated them like people.
Yeah. You could see the
It's
R-rated
also-
version of this with, you know, he
Yeah.
got shrapnel on his face or whatever. And Dark Knight Rises addresses it a little bit with his whole like leg thing and the cane, but then they
Mhm.
immediately
That
undercut
just
it
hand
with
waves
the,
it away.
with the leg thing that he can kick through walls or whatever. But I always
Yeah.
like that moment where he's at the doctor's office and they're like, what the like, what are you doing, Bruce Wayne? And he
Yeah.
says like cave, whatever, cave.
Yeah. But I think this movie in general just has really good actions and action scenes.
Mhm.
The thing I appreciate most about this movie, because for me, I have like a rating where, you know, there's good movies and there's like, I always have like a different rating for superhero movies because they're typically movies that I'll see in the theater and not really care to see again because they're fun. But there's an absence of like the craft of filmmaking here. But this, like, it feels like an actual movie. The production design is great. The action is shot for real. It's not like CGI and that sort of thing.
They actually jumped the car, the Batmobile. They
Yep,
actually did
the
that.
Batmobile chase is fucking sick.
Best Batmobile,
actual-
probably.
An actual car
Maybe
chase with stakes and weight to it, and just even something as simple as the scene where Batman shuts off all the lights in the Iceberg Lounge and he's like just traversing down this hallway beating up guys where it's only lit by the muzzle flares of the gun. There's a shot that was in the trailer, but it's still like an insane shot. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's great, well shot at like it's well choreographed. That's one, but it's also well shot in the way that like lighting is used, and the scenery, the set design
Sound design's
is
great.
integrated into the fight scenes. And
Mhm.
best part about it, and this is a comment pointed at the Zack Snyder Batman. None of the fight scenes go on for longer than like 5 minutes.
There's there's not a lot, honestly.
No.
And I like
No.
that because they feel earned and they feel there's a weight to them when they happen. Whereas
And even like the
Yeah.
ending climactic scene, like there's stuff going on, but the actual fighting is pretty limited.
Yeah.
and he gets wounded, like he gets his ass kicked because he's fighting,
Yeah.
25 guys or whatever.
Like
And I like
25
those two.
Redditors.
25
Channers.
furious Redditors off G Fuel. I like that adrenaline, or I think Chandler, you said it could be they could set that up
Venom.
as Bane Venom,
Yep.
and he just goes
it's
like
green.
fully feral.
Yeah.
It's probably just like a little nod. They probably won't use Bane again,
Yeah.
but I like
want
that word.
bring back Spanish Bane.
I think there's a version of Bane too that is like Russian, but I think the main Bane
Kenneth
has, like,
Branagh as Bane.
is Latin American.
I do find it interesting in that it seems like every Batman movie can't resist not having multiple villains for some reason.
But that's
Like, it
fun.
seems
So many good
That-
ones.
Okay, yeah, but
That's
I'm
a
not
fun
saying this as
Batman
like
specific archetype. Yeah.
sure. I'm not
Spider-Man
saying this
does
is a
it
bad
too.
thing. Or
Yeah.
yeah, but I feel like Batman in particular, like every Batman movie is just like here's one and here's one, and I feel like the Batman Begins didn't do it particularly well, but
No.
obviously Dark
R.I.P.
Knight,
Scarecrow.
yeah.
Billy
Cillian Murphy
Reed.
did a good job. Like that, one of the
He did, but that's
Yeah.
that's the best Batman.
Um, and Dark
best?
Knight obviously was for the most part focused on just the Joker, which is why it works, and all the other
Two-Face.
villains.
Two-Face.
Well, but
there's
it's
a good amount of
I didn't
Two-Face.
say there wasn't more villain. I just said it's focused on like that the Joker is the villain of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone else is subsequent much lower side plot antagonists. And this one I feel though does having the multiple big villains the best in like integrating them throughout the plot and each of them having their own way into it, and particularly like the Penguin he's not really much of a villain, but he's just kind of like a side character. He's a part of the world,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
setting
yeah.
up more of his arch villainry for later, which was nice. wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't taking away too much focus from the Riddler and then Falcone. And I didn't know John Turturro was in this movie, and that was
Neither did
a
I.
wonderful surprise.
He's great.
seeing
He's
him
so
here.
great in this. It's
Love
the
John Turturro.
opposite of the Night of character. He's just the
Yeah.
exact opposite.
Yeah.
Usually I feel like the Batman movies, they'll do two different ones. They'll have like one villain that's like the brute force, and then one that's like the mastermind, or they'll do one where it's like largely Bruce Wayne or like a character thing versus like, I don't know, the villain who has the evil plot. And I feel like
The mini boss.
the mini boss, and Catwoman kind of is like she's not a villain, but she's like an ancillary character that toes the
Yeah.
line, that serves a similar character thing as like a villain would, where it's like she does things in a way that's different than Batman. She wants to kill this guy and he doesn't. But yeah, I think in the sequel we'll probably have Penguin. Mr. Freeze would be based, but it's probably too much of a jump for Matt.
Well,
Reeves.
No,
we could
that
also
would
have.
make-
We have the Penguin, but he is getting his own TV show, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly
Yeah.
what they're gonna do with that. But there's also the Joker that was set up. Theoretically,
Well,
Dude,
Matt Reeves
okay.
has said, I don't know if
Yeah.
he's just teasing or there's like a weird legal thing, because for a while he wouldn't say the Joker. He's like, yeah, he is who you think he is. And I'm like, is there like a licensing reason why he won't say the Joker? But anyway, I think he did eventually. But he said, like, I don't know if the Joker is going to be in it. The point of it was
Not my
that
Joker.
he's in the world and he's met Batman already. Maybe
Yeah.
the third one.
I saw
The Riddler has a friend.
fantastic,
that's nice. He gets a
I
nice
saw
happy
a
ending.
fantastic little concept art thing, right? Because you know how the Batman, the color scheme is black and red.
The black
Right.
and, yeah, that's all that.
It was a great little like thing where like Gotham's flooded, winter is coming, Penguin's rising to prominence. Imagine like a dual ice type thing where there's Penguin and Freeze
Dude,
with a blue color
please.
palette.
That'd be
Oh,
great.
God.
Black
the
and
floods the floods show up and winter's coming, so they freeze. You probably have to
Mhm.
ground Mr. Freeze like Nolan grounded Bane. And some people don't like that, but I bought it. But
Well,
like,
I mean, we don't want Batman and Robin too.
yeah.
I feel like
Well,
That would be a great
really,
change of aesthetic. The frozen Gotham in the winter. That
Yeah,
would
Arkham
be
City does a
great.
bit, and they could kind of use
Arkham Origins takes
or
place
Arkham
on,
Origins.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Arkham Origins. Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
And if you were to do a frozen Batman, the theme could in that film be the lack of progress, of like things
Ooh,
staying the same,
true.
and kind of like a Sisyphean type scenario where Batman is trying to bring hope and everything, but by the end it's just
dude,
things are the same.
I'm
It's a
s-
cold
I would
world.
so into that. And the second movie of a trilogy is usually the darkest one. The quote Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy.
It's almost a joke at this point.
I know. The All Hope Is Lost can be the second one. And then the third one. Maybe
I
he
want to
brings in a
see.
Robin.
Give me a trilogy where the second movie is All Hope Is Won, and then the last movie in the
Okay.
trilogy is nope. That's the real dark one.
That's when you
Yeah.
get the Joker. Did you see who's
Pull a
playing the
subversion
Joker,
of
by the way?
expectation. Yes, him. That person, the one in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Green Knight. I forget his
And
name.
Killing
I
the Sacred
remembered
Deer.
I have my Two-Face Dark Knight coin that's
Very
in the
cool.
collector's edition that I just grabbed. Anyway,
Two-Face is another one that I always like on paper, but never really enjoy him in the movies. Except
like-
for Tommy Lee Jones.
true. I don't know. I don't know. I have faith in Matt Reeves. I love both Planet of the Apes movies he made. I love Cloverfield, and I love this Batman. So if he's gonna do a Joker, I'll be there. But I'm just like, there. It's not even like even Joaquin Phoenix. I was like, I don't even know how you're gonna top Nicholson and Heath Ledger. But now there's 3 Jokers that are good. 4 if you have Mark
Okay.
Hamill.
Yeah, 4.
And it's
that's
like-
also my favorite Joker.
Well, yeah, I just meant live action. I love Mark
Yeah.
Hamill's the Joker. That's another reason why Arkham Origins I don't really want to replay because it's not Mark Hamill.
Yeah, who cares?
I think it'd be good to avoid the Joker thing, just in terms of just kind of doing your own thing and giving
also,
us something
It's
new.
a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because he's so quintessential to Batman, but at the same time,
You have to
it's
do
like
the Joker.
You don't
how
have to.
many
Yeah, you don't.
times?
You kind of have to.
No, you
I don't know. I
don't.
feel like
Do it for the third
he's
one. then.
I
he's
don't
the
see like
villain.
sure like the Joker's iconic and everything, but I don't see what is so critical for the Joker to be a part of the Batman story. Like it's not like
It's like having a Star Wars movie without Darth Vader.
Yeah, I mean, we got to bring it
no
back for
no
Obi-Wan.
it's not at all like that.
I don't
It's like
know.
having a Star Wars movie without Palpatine. That's why The Rise of Skywalker is based.
No,
So I'm back.
it would be like having The Empire Strikes Back and taking out Lando. That you could do. He's not inherently part of
Racial
the
element to
plot. Shut the fuck up.
that.
Shut up.
I think they've nailed the identity and what it means to be Batman. Like Matt Reeves has nailed that in the first movie. And I think Joker usually like helps Batman define that himself, even in the 89 or the Dark Knight. So they could theoretically avoid it. I just think people would be butthurt, and
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure to see Pattinson with the Joker.
I guess. It's just like
Dude,
I'm
the
not sure why there'd
multiverse-
be I don't know why there'd be pressure because we've had so many Jokers and recently too. It's just like
the Joker
it's
made
been
$1 billion. People, dude.
Joker will very likely outdo this movie as far as like money goes.
I don't think so. I
but
don't
think
with
so.
the
It's not-
Joker, it could do sort of a this is terrible, but like a Emperor Palpatine from The Rise of Skywalker. How like
somehow Joker's
like,
turn.
no, but like all the movies are like the main villains are different than the Joker, but we find out like the Joker's been like playing jokes on the Batman and just sending villain after villain so he can never actually clean up Gotham. Be like pulling the strings from behind the scenes kind of villain.
I think I'm
whole time
more-
he's just in Arkham. We just cut back to him each movie just a little bit and
There you go.
I thi-
I,
I
want
think
Arkham Asylum. Do that for the
Yeah.
third one.
Yeah. I think I'm more the only reason I'm hesitant about like, getting Jokers because I'm more sad that they went with him of all the actors. Because so when I heard his voice, right? They had that scene with him. I was convinced that it was Caleb Laundrie Jones. Who do you guys know who that is? That actor?
no.
Wasn't
His face. He's got a very distinct face. Jacob, I know.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
who he
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sure
Wasn't
I know
he
who he is. I
rumored
just
to be
don't.
on the short list?
I assumed. Wait, hold on. Hold on. It's that guy, Jacob, from Twin Peaks
Hmm.
and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I thought it was him, but then it was that guy who he's a great actor. I've enjoyed everything that he's in. I just don't like him, and I don't know. Maybe he'll be a good Joker if they even decide to go with the Joker. But
I don't like his face, so maybe that's actually going to be a positive for the Joker, and then I'll actually I'll dislike
Yeah.
the root against the Joker for once. Because every movie the Joker's in, I'm just like, give me more.
Yeah.
I have faith.
Who
I think-
cares? Second movie is gonna be Penguin.
dude?
That's all.
Penguin
I
and
need is
Mr.
Penguin
Freeze,
Soprano.
please. Our pitch is good.
It
I think
is.
we got it. I think we got
The
it.
Batman
just give
2,
it
the
here,
big
give it here.
freeze.
What's gonna happen
Give
with
it here.
Catwoman? By the way, she gonna come back?
Think
in the
she's
second
gone?
one?
Probably
No.
there's no way she's not gonna come back.
She'll
Is she gonna
Skype
come
in.
back in the second one or the third one?
She'll call
Probably
Batman.
second one.
Give him moral support.
She went to Bloodhaven too, which, I mean, they mentioned it. Are they going to set up a Robin? I think so. Robert Pattinson.
Wait, is that where she
says-
went?
Yes, that's where Nightwing ends up. So maybe they
Oh.
do.
So
Maybe they do it
To get back on-
No, they can't do a Robin. He's too young.
So
You can do whatever you want. Anyway, to get back on the Batman for a second, instead of all this
Speculation.
speculation.
true,
Yeah.
true.
My one issue with the film overall is what's preventing me from truly loving it as a whole is that the ending didn't like the ending didn't quite click for me. Like the final voiceover from Batman as he's saving people on top of the stadium. From that point on, I was like, "Oh, this is an okay ending for this really good movie." And what I inevitably came to the conclusion of like thinking of like why it didn't quite click for me 100% is that this idea of you could say the theme of the film is, or the theme of Batman's arc is going from I am vengeance to being a symbol of hope. And I felt that if you're going for that, the movie didn't effectively argue for that change throughout the course of its runtime. Like that felt like it was really well established in the beginning, and then it was really well established at the climactic scene. But in the middle, I didn't get too much like scenarios where Batman being a symbol of fear and vengeance was a bad thing. Where like
Yeah,
if
I
you're
agree.
trying to go through that arc, and you need to have a scene where Batman being a symbol of fear is a negative to him accomplishing his goal, and vice versa, where he tries being more of a symbol of hope. And not that like the movie isn't bad for not doing that. It's just like as like a thematic cohesive film, I felt like it was more interested in the middle of the runtime being a detective movie, which is great. It's fine. Just like it bookended by really strong hints at like a thematic and a arc that I wasn't sure was woven throughout the runtime
Yeah.
as well as it could be.
I think that's fair. I think I wouldn't say necessarily that at least I don't think that the movie is saying that him being using fear tactics is bad. I think it's more of him being like unhinged in his violence, even though he kind of already doesn't want to kill. So you could say that's muddled. But like, I don't think it's the fear tactics that they're saying don't use, but I think it's just him being like fully doomer pilled. Because
Yeah.
he has a couple of conversations with Catwoman where she's like this place is completely fucked. Like there's no hope.
Sure.
And like
And I think
he's
my argument
like,
still
I
stands
have
up
to
if you
try.
substitute that for
Yeah. I think it's more about like I have to try
Yeah.
to
like if
better
you're gonna
the
bring
city.
up the Batman going through this whole thing with finding out that his dad wasn't um as great as he thought he was, I think more resolution on that front is needed if he's gonna go for more of like not being as doomer pilled and being more hopeful. Like that seems like that's pointing towards more doomer, and I'm not sure the that effectively fed in that subplot effectively fed into his final change realization at the end of the film.
Yeah, well, and especially because they kind of undercut it, that was something that kind of bothered me. Whereas Alfred's like, no, he didn't do that. He didn't want him to kill him. He just wanted him to threaten him or whatever. And I'm like, I kind of wish he would have just been evil or not like corrupt, been like full on corrupt. I think that's much more interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I think it's kind of woven loosely, but
Yeah,
I think it's
loosely is
fair.
a good term.
Loosely, so yeah, that's the thing is this movie, there's a lot of little like tiny things that bother me about this movie, like you just said. That scene, some of the shots were a little weird, some performances were a little wonky, plot sometimes got a little convoluted, but
Hmm.
it's just one of those things where like the little things don't bother me because in the grand scheme of things it nailed everything it needed to do. It's a blockbuster movie that feels like an actual movie. It's not clusters of CGI and fuckery.
Like it's someone
There's
telling a
great,
story, not the committee filmmaking.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Rear
refreshing.
projection.
Yeah, there's rear projection, which is
Anyway.
always based. It's one of those things where it much like the actual Batman at the end of the movie, it gave me hope for like blockbuster filmmaking. It's just nice. It's nice to see something. The guy clearly cares about telling the story well. So it's sort of like, I don't know, the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses. It's definitely one of the better superhero movies, probably one of the best of like the last decade.
Yeah.
And
I-
I'm excited because the first one is usually the where you start getting warmed up to it. So I'm excited to see where he goes. Strong,
Definitely.
great movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think another reason why Jacob doesn't like the ending narration is it's because it's Paul Schrader-esque journaling device.
True, true. It is very much a Paul Schrader Batman.
I find it's funny that we've kind of come full circle in that when The Dark Knight came out, a lot of movies after that, the discourse was they all took the wrong lessons of like being dark, gritty, realistic movies, and there
Mhm.
was like a backlash against that. And obviously now the Marvel movies came out and they're not dark and gritty, they're fun and comic booky. And now we've
Mhm.
come full circle back to even darker and even grittier than The Dark Knight. And I hope that studios take the lesson of a unique genre driven, character driven story, not the it's dark and gritty and real. Like that's not the lesson.
Exactly.
The lesson is telling a interesting story in a unique way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the unique way happened to be very dark and very gritty.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it worked as well, like aesthetic wise. Sometimes it's hard to see, but it's
love
never
that. It's great.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And all the shadows are great. It's funny because DC, they're like, okay, they like the Dark Knight. Okay, we'll get Zack Snyder, make it even darker. Oh, they don't. Oh, those movies didn't do well. Okay, now we need to just make Marvel movies. It's like, no, that's not
Just
the
don't get
point.
Zack Snyder.
It's just like just make it's. Yeah, that was always frustrating to me.
This is a 3-hour movie. I can't remember the last time that I've been this riveted to the screen for that long. From any like major blockbuster, not just superhero movies, but major blockbusters. I was the best thing I can say about this movie, is it tries to do good thematic stuff, and whether that works or not is perhaps not the point. It put the effort in, and it put the effort into making a compelling story, and it succeeds in being terribly compelling. And I very much look forward to watching a 3-hour Batman movie again.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm gonna see it one more time before it leaves the theaters.
Yeah, I might go today. I was thinking about it. I'm not going today. Maybe I'll finally get the Batman vessel.
You're
Yeah,
right.
you
The
get
word
this.
vessel is just
It's
It's so
makes
funny. The vessel.
Oh, quickly, is it your favorite suit and Batmobile? It's Batmobile's tied with the bird.
definitely my favorite suit.
It's like almost like Dracula, like with the cape. Like how it
I
comes
kind of
up,
like
right here.
I kind of like the Nolan Humvee Batmobile.
Do
Because
you?
yeah, because I like the way it looks. I also love that he just shoots a fucking cycle out of it. which is
That's
fun.
the best part of it. is that-
Yeah,
And then you get the
Um,
bat in Dark Knight Rises where it's like flies, which is kind of
yeah. It's definitely my favorite suit, though.
Yeah.
I love this suit.
I think it might be
Um,
mine
It's very
favorite.
leathery.
Yeah.
The fact
The
that it
construction of
still
all of it.
feels
It doesn't-
handmade.
And
Yeah.
when
He's
he
got
turns his
fucking-
head, it like you can hear the leather
Yeah.
moving. It's so cool.
He's got like fucking Doc Martens on,
yeah.
which is sick.
The 89 Batman had Air Jordans that were painted black, which is kind of sick. That's kind of awesome. But yeah.
Yeah. Best Batman. Not the best Batman movie, but the best Batman.
But it's up there.
It's up
It's a strong
there. It is
contender.
up-
I could
it's-
not blame
yeah.
anyone for saying it's the best Batman movie.
Agreed.
And again, maybe even will be it when I see it a second time. We'll see. Probably won't, but because Dark Knight also has its fair share of issues. But we'll see. I'm happy to see it again. Cinema is saved. Thanks, Matt Reeves.
Jackass and Batman have single-handedly saved cinema
I agree.
this year.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Fact.
Death on the Nile and The Batman have saved cinema. Great movies.
And enough champagne.
To fill the Nile. Yeah, I don't think we're going to talk about the worst person in the world.
No, we got a minute.
Bye.
And a half left.
I mean, we could.
No.
It's good.
It's cinema.
I like it.
It's cinema.
Jacob, we'll talk about it next episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Brief thoughts.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
mean,
that was our discussion of the Batman. We all highly recommend it. Go see it in a movie theater. I'm going to try to get this review out quickly. So
Yeah.
maybe this will be the first split take. I don't want to be too wishful thinking here, but the first split take episode where we review a movie
That's still in theaters.
still in theaters.
it'll be on HBO Max if it's not out in theaters.
Yeah. So it'll be on HBO Max in April. So.
And Blu-ray in June.
Yeah. Yep.
The Batman Criterion edition. Keto Lober Studios presents The Batman.
With commentary by Colin Farrell doing the Penguin voice.